Hey, everybody. I like the beard, man. I'm recognizing those more. Well, man, it's good to see everybody. Welcome to the weekly availability press conference during the session. Couple bills I'm excited about. First off, it's been a really good couple weeks. Having breakfast every Tuesday morning with the speaker and the pro tem, and everything's going well. I know they're working through a lot of subcommittee work and policy work as we're going to make 2025 an awesome year for the citizens of Oklahoma. A couple bills I've had my eyes on. House Bill 1024. It's the Bayshore bill. Bayshore's a great representative from the northeast part of our state, and it basically eliminates a mandatory. Think about this. Oklahomans will think this is crazy. It eliminates a mandatory 6% markup on certain goods. So in other words, if you want to mark up the free market, if a company wants to sell the goods and mark it up 6% or 10% or 20%, that's fine. You let the market dictate whether consumers are going to buy that product. But if somebody wants to mark up a good at 5% or 4%, they should be able to do that. So excited to get that across the finish line. Also, Senate Bill 758. Kristen Thompson eliminates the virtual school days. And it's something I talked about in the state of the state. We have some schools, some schools in Oklahoma going around 146 days a year, and other states are north of 180. And as we're trying to focus on outcomes and we're trying to make sure that our kids are college ready or career ready or they're ready to compete in the workforce, we all know that having kids in the classrooms with our wonderful school teachers is a must. So I hate the fact that we've got a snow day today. Let's make it up, or let's build in 4 or 5 snow days every year, but let's not call them virtual days and have them count as an instruction day. I think that's pretty common sense, and I think most Oklahomans agree with me on that. So with that, open it up to Q&A and whatever's on your mind. I have some.
Hey, Governor. So you removed 3 board members from the State Board of Education yesterday. Can you tell us specifically why you did that? And then in the last 20 minutes, really, Walters has announced a Trump advisory committee naming 2 of those former board members. So why you replace those 3 and your reaction to this?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I want to thank them for their service to the state of Oklahoma. The governor has thousands of appointees to different boards and commissions. And this board in particular serves the pleasure of the governor. And so I felt like we needed a fresh set of eyes on that board. And it's really about outcomes. What are we here to do? And if you've got your education hat on, you're here to make sure that our kids are equipped and have the best education possible. So when I see our NAEP scores not improving, when I see things that are messed up or wrong, or kids being used as political pawns for some political, stunt. It's just frustrating. So I've been hearing from around the state, and finally, when we see the scores and the outcomes not being where they need to be compared to other states, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do what I can as governor to make sure that we are focused on those outcomes. We're getting those kids ready for the workforce and competing in a very competitive world.
Well, to be a little more specific, I think we could probably guess 2 or 3 instances where maybe the superintendent has done something that you could consider that. What do you specifically mean? The immigration thing or what?
Yeah, I think the immigration thing is something that is really frustrating. When I talk to law enforcement, collecting data on kids and using them as political pawns is not something that helps law enforcement. And I've got to, people confuse these issues here. In Oklahoma, our Constitution says we're going to educate all kids. And I want to make sure that every kid feels safe and is being educated in the state of Oklahoma. Nobody has been stronger on the border than I have. And do we have to have a strong border? 100%. I sent our troops to the southern border in support of Governor Abbott. We were down there. The Biden administration with their open border policies have really led to some problems in our country. And I'm so happy that President Trump, day one in office, closed that border. But to use our kids as political pawns is unbelievable to me. I was the first governor that set up what we call Operation Guardian. I think we probably in here talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Operation Guardian is to get the criminals that have committed criminal acts, and I talked about it in my State of the State, that are in prison in the state of Oklahoma, and work with the Trump administration and Tom Holman and Tim Tipton's had numerous conversations. I met with him when I was in DC, and to figure out how do we get the criminal element, people that are breaking the laws out of the state of Oklahoma. And so that's what we're focused on. I think that's what President Trump's focused on. And unfortunately, we've got people that are really trying to attack 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kids. And I'm not going to let that happen.
So just to be clear then, have you declared schools off limits to like ICE agents and different people that might enforce those issues?
No, I haven't made anything off limits. The first step is to make sure that we have a fresh set of eyes. And again, having these folks, having really good Oklahomans on these different boards and commissions is really the first step that the governor can do. We've got a weird system in Oklahoma that you look to your governor and say, hey, governor, go fix education, but then there's a separately elected superintendent of education. And so, but the bottom line is when you think about the outcomes and you think about where our kids are compared to other states, we're not doing as well as we should. And so we have to get that fixed. And we've got to make sure that kids are learning in the classrooms. And that's the big overall picture here that I'm trying to make sure that we get fresh set of eyes on that school board.
When you speak with companies looking to move to Oklahoma, how often does Oklahoma's education ranking come up?
That's, I was just talking to a CEO the other day, and that's why I think the parental choice tax credit is so important that we got passed a couple of years ago. We weren't going to inject competition in our schools. Now every single family has the ability to go to a private school, a Christian school, a Catholic school, any private school. We have great charter schools in Oklahoma. Santa Fe South is a school that we talk about. The KIPP schools, there's schools that do apprenticeships, which I think are more and more going to be in vogue as we move forward. Because when you think about kids going to school 2 or 3 days a week and then going into an internship or an apprenticeship, that's what other countries are doing in their education model. And so I'm just trying to encourage more competition. And if we do that, I believe all boats are going to rise in our education system. But it's certainly, a CEO that's moving companies to Oklahoma, they're asking about the school system, just like you or I, when you're moving to a town or you're moving to a school district and you're going to choose that school district or that home a lot of times based on what are the scores? How are the kids going to perform? Where are my kids going to be? What are the parents like? And so that's pretty normal for a parent to want to make sure their kids have the best education possible.
Governor, I can just talk loudly.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, just following up on this immigration, checking students' immigration status in schools or their citizenship status. It sounds like you're not a fan of that idea.
That proposal will eventually come to your desk in the form of administrative rules if the legislature advances that forward or takes no action on it. If that does hit your desk, would you not sign it? I'm curious how you would respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to change that. I'm going to do what I can to change that. Collecting again, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids' addresses and immigration status in the state of Oklahoma, that's not a public safety issue. Let's go after the bad guys. Let's go after people that are committing crimes, and let's not terrorize and make our kids not show up at school. That's what I'm talking about. So that's the thing, that it was an unforced error, and it's doing something that we shouldn't be doing in Oklahoma. Here's something that's interesting. I think Oklahomans will find this interesting. I did some research on, President Reagan. He was my favorite president. And I started looking back at some of his debates, because these immigration issues are nothing new. They've been around for a long time. And number one, you have to know who's coming in your country. You're not a country unless you have strong borders. So Trump's taking care of that day one in office. But President Trump and actually Bush 41 during their debate when they were running against each other for president in 1980, they had a debate down in Houston, Texas, and they were asked this exact same question about kids. Should kids be taught in schools in Houston, Texas, who their parents brought them here or whatever? And the answer was yes. I mean, we're not going to not teach a 6 or 7 and 8-year-old kid how to, we're going to teach them how to read in America, and we're going to fix the actual problem, and that's at the border, and that's crime. But as far as giving people contracts to work and making sure we have a good H-1B visa situation and knowing who's here, and if you want to chase the American dream, if you want to be part of our country, and you're coming here and doing things legally, and we're matching an employer with an employee, man, I've been all over the world, and that's pretty much kind of the way that every country operates. They know who's coming in, they know who's working, they know who's paying their taxes and following their laws. If you don't follow our laws, you're going to be out of our country. So, but again, when I see people running for political office, and I've told y'all this before, you're going to see more of this as we get into later this year and in 26, and as you see people running for governor, they're trying to get headlines. They're trying to get their names in the paper. I've never been in politics. I never was in politics. I never was in another office before I ran to serve my state as governor. And so Oklahomans know that I'm just focused on outcomes. I'm focused on making Oklahoma top 10, and we're doing it. We've got flat budgets. We've done tax cuts. We have the largest savings account we've ever had. I've put more money in education in my first 6 years than they did for like 30 years before I got here. I've given our teachers wonderful pay raises. I pay market. We have fewer people incarcerated today than when I took office. I'm going to have fewer state employees when I leave at 8 years than when I started. And so we've been very proud of this. And but I've got to call balls and strikes when I see people attacking my state or attacking or not doing a good job in education. I'm going to step in and do what I can to try to fix it.
Hey, how's it going? So kind of going into that, we've asked you about Walters for quite some time. There's been investigations, there's been lawsuits, there's been so-called drama popped up several times in the last year or so. Every time we kind of ask you about it, you go, the people chose them. I don't want to get involved with that too much. So why now? Why are you choosing to step in now? But there's been other situations, lawsuits and whatnot, there's investigations right now. So why now? And then finally, I'm going to ask you, the AG is running for governor, so kind of goes with that too. They're saying you're not Trump enough. I guess what's your response to that?
Oh man, that's pretty funny. Well, first off, why now? I guess it's when you're picking on kids. I guess when you're using them as political pawns. I guess when you're starting to make my state nervous about something that's just pretty normal. I guess that's when I'm like, listen, enough's enough. This is getting ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, here's the deal. These guys are running for their next office. They're playing politics, trying to get their names in the paper, and Oklahomans can see right through it. I think that's why Oklahomans hate politicians so much, is because do the job you're elected to do. That's what drives me crazy. You run to get your job, and then you end up running for the next deal instead of actually focusing and doing the job you're elected to do. When I won governor, I canceled and got rid of all of my political people. And they all criticized me. My political people were like, hey, you need to do this for reelect. I said, listen, if I do my job for Oklahomans, I'm doing this as a sacrifice. This is public service. Oklahomans will beg me to run for reelection. So let's go do the job that we're called to do. And I think that's what's so frustrating is you see people weaponizing their offices, doing different things to get publicity. Maybe they're doing it out of a clean heart, but it sure looks questionable, especially when you pick on, 8-year-old kids.
Looks like I'll be the one that changes the topic. A little bit on Doge OK. You describe how you would like to see the division run as it gets set up, how it plugs into legislative efforts, and if there's a timeline on we will know who the Doge advisor will be.
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. First off, I want to commend the House. Speaker Hilbert has really been focused on this as well. Lonnie Paxton, those guys are fiscal conservatives. They want to help with this. I think all of America, I was on Sean Hannity's radio program, and we were talking about, the Doge National, what Elon's doing. Here's the deal. The Doge nationally, those guys, they're not cutting the military, or they're not cutting Medicaid or Medicare. They're not cutting those things. What they're doing is they're looking for the waste, fraud, and abuse, right? And we need to be doing that. Americans know we need to be doing that. Oklahomans know, because we're spending $2 trillion over our income. Imagine if you make $80,000 a year, but then you're spending $160,000, right? You can't sustain that forever. You're going to put credit card debt on yourself, and then you're going to be making interest payments on that. Well, that's what our government's been doing for some time. Now they have a $36 trillion debt. Our interest-only payments are more than we spend on our national defense, okay? And we spend a lot of money on national defense, and that's interest only. In other words, your mortgage payment is interest and principal. So you're going to pay it off eventually, right? Even though it's a 30-year mortgage, but we're doing interest only. That means we're not doing interest and principal on the national debt. So it's getting worse. Then we're borrowing $2 trillion. So some of the stuff they're finding on the federal level is just amazing. I've been doing Doge OK since I started. I've been doging in Oklahoma since January of 2019. And as you know, I'm a smaller government, flat budgets, give the money back to the people, keep this place as small as possible. And so we're going to do that. And we're going to also let Elon and the president know, if you need to cut the state budgets, because a lot of our budgets come from the feds, right? So California gets a lot of money from the feds, Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, all of us do. So instead of a one size fits all, Elon saying we're going to cut 10% of the money that we give to the state of Oklahoma, my theory is we need to help him with that. And we need to say, okay, Elon, if you're going to cut 10% of what you're giving to the state of Oklahoma, here's the scalpel approach. So here's how we think we can do it efficiently instead of just cutting one thing or another. And so we think we can help him with that. And if you extrapolate that over 50 states, that's where he can come up with $500 billion or $1 trillion, whatever the number is. So that's my purpose with the Doge OK, is to really help Elon know, if you can block grant something to us, here's how it needs to look. I mean, FEMA, I've got a call with FEMA later this week, and they're thinking about a block grant situation that'll help us. Those are the reasons we're doing it, but we're looking at all the efficiencies and all the waste and consolidation in our state government so we can deliver better services, more efficient government for the people of Oklahoma. After all, that's who we serve, right?
You've been in office 6 years now. Where is the waste now? I mean, what responsibility do you have on that?
Well, first off, we've been working on it the whole time. But if we're going to cut another, like I said, 10% out of the federal expenditures to Oklahoma, I want to be part of that. So we're going to have to even tighten our belt a little bit more, versus President Trump just saying, hey, here's across the board going to be a cut to the states. I think we ought to be part of that. I can give you a couple different examples. I mean, going after vehicles. We have 1,000 fewer vehicles than when I started. Look at my employee count. This is not by accident.
That's a small part of the budget, though, right? I mean, vehicles are a tiny part of the overall state budget, right? I mean, that's a small part. So where else would you cut?
What's your question?
Like, where would you cut other than vehicles?
Well,
Like, you've been in office 6 years.
I vetoed the OETA deal. I would have cut about $5 million from a state agency. I know you love that kind of stuff, but I would have. Listen, here's what people like you don't understand. If it's more than a ham sandwich, I'm going to look at it. $5 million here, $5 million there. It all adds up. It's all the taxpayer money. It's really easy for guys like you to try to spend other people's money. And so don't say it's a small part of the budget. If I can cut 1,000 vehicles, I think most of Oklahomans would say, great job, Governor, let's cut that. And, but what may be small to you may not be small to others. So I'm going to cut as much as I can. I'm going to cut as much as I can.
Sir, what's your relationship with Superintendent Walters like right now? Yesterday he said you were part of a swampy political establishment.
Well, I haven't talked to Mr. Walters. So I don't think the relationship's really good at all. After I read what he said, it didn't sound like he liked me too much. But when I focus on, I know he's running for another office and trying to get headlines, and so he can do that all he wants. But when we focus on the kids and we focus on outcomes, let's make sure that we're keeping the kids at the center. And so, you know, when you've got failing test scores and you've got this kind of turmoil and drama, and he's the superintendent of education, he needs to be held accountable for that. And we need a fresh set of eyes on those boards.
Why would you need to act Zachary Marshall specifically on the state board? Why are we?
I'm sorry?
Why specifically leave Cyril Act and Zachary Marshall on the state board?
Those are two people that I think I can work with, and they were on there, I believe, more recently than the others. And again, I mean, I switch out boards quite a bit. We have probably 3,000 appointments or so over an 8-year period. I mean, Chris Brule can probably give the exact number, but it's a lot of folks. And so I switch people out, and I even talked to Burdick. I said, hey, love your service to the state. Where else could we plug you in? So I'm not precluding these guys from serving again somewhere else. And I ruffle a lot of feathers. When I first got in, removing people from transportation or this department, they got their feelings hurt, but we've put them on other boards. And I believe that you need fresh set of eyes, right? Sometimes you need a shakeup. If you're not winning football games, you change your quarterback, right? If we're going 3-8 and something, I'm a guy that's not going to take. We will have a winning culture in Oklahoma. We want to be top 10. So if we're not top 10 in education, Oklahomans should be mad. We should try something else, right? I'm not going to sit back and not continue to use every lever I can to try to protect Oklahomans and try to make our education system better. God bless you. Thank you, guys.